On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. One of the great things about awakening is, or red pilling, as they frequently call it, and it's kind of a funny little tie-in to a story a little further on into this episode. But when we awaken, when we go through these experiences, you actually do it through an understanding of some of the things that have happened around you your whole life that you never realized. A lot of the little hidden things, a lot of the little places where you thought you trusted everybody and come to find out they didn't know what they were doing, they weren't doing it in the best interest, who knows, any number of things. And this set of cue posts that we've got here, and I think the direction that they're trying to help us focus, this aspect of awakening, the one place that we're focusing on, I think, is where the CIA has very much infiltrated our world. And I think the CIA, parts of it anyways, the 1%, I think we go back to that 1%, 99% thing, but that bad 1% of the CIA, who knows, maybe more, they are in control of things and doing things to make and affect what happens in this world, this country, other countries. And maybe a little bit too much power? I don't know. But if you think about it, the last major person I think that tried to make a stand against the CIA specifically, Reagan in question, but we'll go before that and do the one for sure, was Kennedy. 1963, Kennedy was shot. Prior to that, Kennedy was trying to get us off the gold, or get us off onto a silver standard, right? Get us off the crap money that we're on. And also was trying to take away some of the power of the CIA. And his brains were seeing the light of day. This is what we have been up against as patriots, and finally have someone fighting for us. Trump as a figure man, as a president that's willing to stand up and let people throw stones and sticks and everything else at this guy. He's just trying to do the best for the country. And we've certainly got patriots. You've got your Flynn's, you've got your good congressmen that are out there, you've got your other many patriots, you've got your many wonderful servicemen, you've got your Anons that are doing their part to try to bring this information to light. And so for some of us, accepting that things maybe aren't quite what we thought, accepting that maybe some of the things that we used to think were benign at best are actually maybe quite more insidious than we realized, maybe a lot more dangerous than we realized. So this post right here, and we'll get started where we left off, 4297, perfect place to lead in. Where was Joe Scarborough at the time of the death of this individual, this person that worked for him, whatever, in his office that died? Some sort of discovery that this lady had an appointment with him at 8 a.m., I think the following morning. So for him to have been out of town and on vacation seemed like that was a bit of a lie. So again, a lot of holes in the story about where Joe Scarborough was, what was going on with him. So some attention's being brought to that. Some people are asking some questions that probably would be good questions to ask. So we've got a link here, of course, that they'd like us to follow. Now, Mika Brzezinski, I'll try, slammed Trump for spreading a debunked conspiracy theory that her husband and co-host, Joe Scarborough, so he's kind of both, sleeping with the boss, fun that way. Or maybe she's in charge and he's sleeping with her. You might have assumed the other way. Shame on you. But apparently, Joe Scarborough may have been involved in a murder, and she's not real happy about that. Now, just a real quick reiteration of some of the CIA bantering that I was doing earlier. Anderson Cooper has been brought up on Q posts as being, quote, brought up on the farm, which is a CIA reference. So here he is, Mr. Clean Cut, Mr. Blue Eyes, Mr. Perfect, Clark Kent-looking individual, basically, minus the, white hair. I don't know. Clark Kent never had white hair. Come on now. Let's be serious. The guy used Grecian formula. Everyone knows. But that being said, we've got some very interesting facts that are being pointed out here. And she got a little bit mad at Donald Trump for retweeting this moment where, Roger Stone has been treated very unfairly. How about that jury forewoman? Does anybody think that was unfair, disgraceful? Stay tuned to Fox News, and guys like the low-rating psycho Joe Scarborough are allowed to walk the streets. Open, cold case. And then he retweets this whole thing, right? So a lot of anger maybe flowing around. got a cool little place that's pulled up on this. I think this was the one that I queued up properly. We'll find out. Let's just have some fun with it and see where we go.
Willie and Mike, he's tweeting again all sorts of crazy things. Once again, tweeting conspiracy theories about Joe, falsely accusing him of murder, talking about the death of a young staffer in his congressional office years ago, and calling him dangerous to walk the streets. And I'll just say, I'll take a point of personal privilege here. That's sick. Donald, you're a sick person. You're a sick person. To put this family through this, to put her husband through this, to do this just because you're mad at Joe because Joe got you again today, because he speaks the truth and he speaks plainly about your lack of interest and empathy in others and your lack of ability to handle this massive human catastrophe, the fact that you've made it worse and that you make it worse every day and that you won't even wear a mask to protect people from your germs. But the germs you're spreading on Twitter, first of all, Twitter, you shouldn't be allowing this. And you should be taking these tweets down. And you should be ashamed of yourself. You'll be hearing from me on this, because this is BS. But Donald, you're a sick person. You're really a cruel, sick, disgusting person.
No.
And you can keep tweeting about Joe, but you're just hurting other people.
I gotta have to take a pause. I have to pause, guys, really quick. I'm gonna have to cry. I think I have to cry. This was so painful and horrible to have to listen to. Oh, I feel so bad for her. She obviously has a bit of a problem with Trump. I get that. Trump was sort of insinuating things. Now, I think the funny part, someone decided to come up with this cool little Twitter post thing, kind of making fun of her and how she is and the way she's used to behaving and used to getting along with stuff. Let's take a little gander at this and see how this plays out.
Twitter? Yes, it is. How can I help you? This is Mika. Okay. What's up? I need you to take Donald Trump off of Twitter now. For what? What did he do? Did you hear me? Yeah, I heard you. Do you have any idea who I am or what I'm capable of? No, I have no idea. I want you to take Donald Trump off Twitter now. For what though? You need to be more specific. Do you know who I am? No, I've never heard of Mika. Who? I've never heard of you. I'll tell you again. You take Donald Trump off of Twitter. I know. I'm trying to find. I'm gonna bring hell with me. Okay. I'm gonna use my privilege card right now. I know, but for what? Me? What? You take Donald Trump off Twitter right now. Do you understand me? Hey, you take Donald Trump off Twitter right now. Down. Do you understand me? Hey, settle down. Take a deep breath. Hey.
That is so well done. I love it. I'm sorry. But that is truly... That's the freaking reality of it. I mean, that's the best part of this whole thing. That's the freaking reality of it. These people are so used to getting their own way. They're so used to having things their way. It's unreal. And of course, they're always going after this guy here, which is good times. I love it. I love how this is playing out. Post 4298. More of the same fun, to say the least. And honestly, in my opinion, this is the post that really kind of gives us some ammunition to maybe consider looking back at unmasking history for a period of time. I'm sure they've done it, but I bet we're going to find some more interesting tidbits as that happens, because of course, obviously, as this transition team was occurring, all sorts of crazy things happened. But it seems as though there was information going back even further. I've heard July. But one of the things that's very interesting is Flynn was talking to people that he was supposed to be talking to, but he was talking to somebody that maybe didn't share quite the same perspective that the Obama administration maybe did on some political avenues. And so maybe they were a little upset, and maybe that's where some of that Susan Rice information came out. Do you see how this game's played? And then on top of that, at least the first administration we're aware of that spied on the incoming the incoming people, the incoming president, which is absurd. So, ask and you shall receive. They gave us some information here that is super useful. So, United States Senate via electronic transmission. This has to do with the unmasking of General Flynn. Let's see. As we explained in May 12, 2020 letter to you, one of the most significant unanswered questions about what occurred during the 2016 election is how many Americans were unmasked, at whose request, and for what purpose. It has become evident that the FBI and possibly members of the U.S. Intelligence Committee were focused on U.S. persons affiliated with the Trump campaign as early as 2016, if not earlier. One example is that in April 2016, FBI headquarters directed its New York field office to open counterintelligence investigations of Carter Page, which on August 10, 2016, became part of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. They found people way back that they already had some sort of beef with, some sort of issue with, and then that person talked to Donald Trump about a newspaper they once read. Didn't matter what they talked to him about. Once that happened, all this individual needed to do was make a phone call to somebody that was close to Trump. Because of the way the spying worked, how you just needed to be 1 or 2 or 3 hops away, a lot of these things got trapped into it. But anyways, again, the best way to resolve these issues is to determine the truth and to make clear to the American people what did and did not occur. For these reasons, we respectfully request that you make available to us, as soon as possible, all information regarding the unmasking of U.S. persons affiliated with the Trump campaign requested by members of President Obama's administration from January 2016 through January 2017. If this request needs to be responded to in tranches, we would appreciate receiving unmasked information related to the period of April through June 2016. So again, a whole lot of very interesting information that Ron Johnson and Charles Grassley are both attempting to try to get. So some attention's being brought to this, and I think it does show that there's an interest in what unmasking happened prior. Post 4299, compromise, the Five Eyes friends, the spy kind of thing that's going on out there. A lot of us, I think, don't quite realize how legally Obama may have been able to pull this stuff off. Legally, technicality, it was an abuse of power for sure. I think that's where some of this, as of now, verbal context for Barr, that right now it's not necessarily that he broke laws, though he did. And I don't think there's any question that some very corrupt things happened. But my point is, and here's where I'm coming to this from, on 4299, important to note future events. Now, future events are going to obviously happen and show us what he was talking about now. But masking versus unmasking. Let's look at this original post, obviously. Normally, intelligence passed on from a member of the Five Eyes Alliance, that's Australia, Canada, New Zealand, UK, and US, to another member comes through an official channel for intelligence sharing. However, Nunes, upon reviewing the document that fully launched the FBI's investigation, said there was no intelligence shared that official channel, through the official channel, meaning that the intelligence was shared through unofficial means. So even the unmasking didn't happen through the normal channels. And now what they're hinting at or talking to or speaking sort of directly to is in the Five Eyes situation, you can actually get one of your Five Eye partners to do the spying for you, and then you get the information from them kind of as a secondhand thing. And what I think we're going to have build throughout the next few days and weeks is the CIA was utilizing this Five Eyes, I think actually eavesdropping on the people that were eavesdropping on other people, and thusly they were able to steal that information. So they weren't spying on Trump per se. England might have been, Australia might have been, right? They were doing the spying, and then the CIA kind of hacked into England's systems and pulled that information without necessarily ever having to have it shared with them. So unmasking didn't occur. No one really knew who knew what, only that the UK was looking into something for us. That's how the game was played. So masking versus unmasking is what they're speaking of. Incidentally, intercepted versus direct versus targeted. Now, there's a big difference between accidentally coming across some of this information, Five Eyes, right? Someone else had it, versus, hey, CIA, I need you to directly spy. Or, hey, FBI, I need you to get some dirt on Trump. Or, hey, like whoever, NSA, I want you to tap so-and-so's phones or whatever. There's a big difference between direct and indirect, intercepting something. How does the CIA collect intelligence? Now, there's a little document that's shared. We'll hop on that. CIA is not governed by Fisa. See, so this is a very important distinction, and I think one of the big things that we're taking away from this. Intelligence operations conducted outside the United States The CIA is not governed by Fisa. FBI, under Fisa, the foreign counterintelligence mission, is principally domestic, right? The FBI is domestic. CIA is kind of like the international side of it, right? The outside, the foreign side of it. So target locations, if it's U.S. or abroad, so we got traveling, we got some rules that kind of go along with that, how you can spy on people, where they go, where they stay, who they talk to. There's some different rules, and there's a big, long document coming, and I'm not going through all of it. Foreign intelligence collections of U.S. persons, official versus unofficial. Again, we're going back to some of the Five Eyes stuff. Again, some of the ways that you could spy on someone indirectly because you're in another country now. There's a lot of little gray areas within the law. And again, that's why legally it may have been okay, because it's such a gray area. But the central, what central, and this is C in the C_A, what central ABC agency played quarterback? I think the underscore part's being hidden. I think you can see who was helping play this entire game. Obviously, the CIA was playing a huge part. Executive orders. This tied into the National Archives. There was a reason why we pulled this up. Oh, yes, this had something very cool into it. So abroad, he kind of gives us a hint in this post, as I remind myself. I don't know where I got the abroad part. Somehow it popped into the pay attention to the word abroad. Anyways, that being said, I got that stuck in my head, started doing some searching. Found 10 different places where the word abroad shows up. Talks about membership here. By the way, advisory establishes pursuant to this section, chaired by the Director of Central Intelligence or his designated representative, and shall consist of senior representative, blah, blah, blah. Basically saying I give myself all this power, as well as a senior representative of the Secretary of Commerce, the Attorney General, and the Assistant for President of the National Security Affairs. Now, this part here, the Attorney General, this person is listed out a few times in here, and it's quite interesting. So let's see if we can find the next couple places. So we support down here. We got participate. I think it's like the fifth one. Participants develop procedures, blah, blah, blah. Transmitting reporting requirements. Yeah, don't want that one yet. This one, the purpose. This order is intended to enhance human and technical collection techniques, especially those undertaken abroad, and its acquisition of significant foreign intelligence. So again, more interesting stuff heading towards it. Collection techniques. Agencies within the intelligence community should use the least intrusive collection techniques feasible within the United States or directed against the United States persons abroad. Agencies are not authorized to use such techniques as electronic surveillance, unconsented physical searches, mail surveillance, physical surveillance, or monitoring devices unless they are in accordance with procedures established by the head of the agency and approved by the Attorney General. All of these things could very easily have happened if the head of the agency, was that Brennan, I believe, right? And Eric Holder, Attorney General, were in agreement. You're starting to see how some of these things very easily start to be able to play out, how we could get into some counterintelligence searching. Attorney General hereby is delegated the power to approve the use for intelligence purposes within the United States or against a United States person abroad of any technique for which a warrant would be required if undertaken for law enforcement purposes, provided that such techniques shall not be undertaken unless the Attorney General has determined in each case that there is a probable cause to believe that the technique is directed against a foreign power or against a foreign power. So if they think that you're messing with a foreign power, say talking to Russians for an example, and they've decided that or labeled you as an extremist or as a problem, all of a sudden now they've got broad strokes to be able to do all sorts of things. Eric Holder, just pointing out the fact that he was the Deputy Attorney General. I do remember seeing a couple interesting things that caught my attention. Let me see if I can find them really quick. We'll see if we can. Marijuana by one. So he didn't want to make marijuana legal. He wanted to still convict people like federally for marijuana. Don't want to get too off on crazy stuff, but just interesting, right? And then I swear we had a very last thing here. Operation Choke Point. Refusal to prosecute financial institutions. This one caught my attention. March 6, 2013, Holder testified to the Senate Judiciary Committee that the size of large financial institutions has made it difficult for the Justice Department to bring criminal charges when they are suspected of crimes because such charges can threaten the existence of a bank and therefore their interconnectedness may endanger the national or global economy. Eric Holder didn't want to go after the big banks because, it might make things a little rough around the edges. Screw the law. This is the Obama administration. Law doesn't apply, right? Isn't that the problem? The double standard that exists? Post 4300, another wonderful link here for us on the Federalist. Look at these two guys. Hey now, how the Obama administration weaponized surveillance laws to target Trump. Yep, the drip of newly classified documents related to the Trump-Russia investigation, together with recent reports that a classified leak against former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn might not have come from an unmasking request. Leaves little doubt the Obama administration weaponized federal surveillance laws to target Trump associates and undermine the incoming administration. Very complex story that is beginning to brew. We seem to have quite a few problems. A brief history of surveillance of abuse in the Fisa. It's a great article. I have this one linked below for sure. But to understand how they did this, a bit of historical context is in order. Congress passed Fisa in 1978 as a result of this church committee hearings that had to do with President Nixon, had to do with spying. He used the FBI and the CIA to spy on U.S. citizens. That made a few people angry. So before Fisa, the U.S. Supreme Court had upheld warrantless wiretaps if the primary purpose was gathering foreign intelligence. But it also ruled that the court approval was required for domestic surveillance to satisfy the Fourth Amendment, citing the inherent vagueness of the domestic security concept and warning of its potential for abuses. Domestic terrorism, right? You've heard that term thrown around a little bit. That's why Congress passed FISA. The law establishes a procedure for collecting intelligence and conducting electronic surveillance on foreign powers and agents of foreign powers. Obama and the admin distorted FISA beyond recognition. They truly did. They took advantage of this in so many ways. They were controlling the judges. There's a lot of speculation and rumor that they may very well have had blackmail on some of these judges. I think one of the great examples that's infamously cited is the Obamacare and the forcing of it, or you got taxed, and that whole thing was technically unconstitutional. Initially was deemed as unconstitutional. Then I believe it was Judge Roberts that changed his mind magically and then disappeared for a month-long vacation or whatever the hell. So again, that was the way they rolled. They wanted to pass something. They'd get dirt on you if they didn't have it already, and you would change your mind, trust me. Worth remembering, who was the quarterback? We got another article being shared here from the New York Times. I actually had to give him my email address to get in here. Very annoying. Inquiry by CIA affirms it spied on Senate panel. And some of you would be like, well, yeah, it probably happened recently, right? No, this was July 31st, 2014. 2014. Long story short, Feinstein apparently was being spied on by the CIA, and then, oh my God, the CIA lied about it? And oddly, it was Feinstein. I believe it was Brennan, right, if I remember correctly. But there was a statement issued Thursday morning by CIA spokesman, said that John O'Brennan, the agency's director, had apologized to Ms. Feinstein and the committee's ranking Republican Senator Saxby Chambliss of Georgia, and would set up an internal accountability board to review the issue. The statement said that the board, which will be led by former Democratic Senator Evan Baugh of Indiana, could recommend potential disciplinary measures and steps to address systematic issues. I think somebody's starting to get busted. Brennan's popped up a few times. Here's 2014. Spying on the Senate, maybe not a good idea. They seem to not like that, right? But again, showing a pattern of abuse by the CIA going back to at least 1963, best I can tell, but I'm sure it goes back further than that, probably towards its inception, which I don't have off the top of my head. Post 4302, got another post, expand your thinking. This will go in reporters and the CIA. They keep in touch, but at arm's length. It's a very interesting article that talks about how the media has been used and abused throughout history and in many different governments. Certainly talked about the Russians and how they have frequently used this, how the Russian news reporters are very frequently never ever talk about, like if someone comes up with them with some sort of news story, Russians are like, yeah, I don't really want to hear it, don't care. And they get paid to not report stuff. So we've learned a few tricks. And again, going back to Anderson Cooper, we've learned that if you can get control of the media, if you can get control of the vocal machine that people listen to and trust, going back to my very initial statements, if you can take advantage of the people through a medium that they trust. You can control them, you can tell them, you can push them in any direction you want to go. They become very pliable. The media is an amazing way to accomplish that. Post 4303, logical thinking, CIA coming back into the news soon, if it isn't already. CIA's use of journalists and clergy in intelligence operations. Clergy. I mean, if you think about what's the best way, I know from the standpoint, I was brought up Catholic, but from the standpoint of knowing that you're not supposed to, the priest is not allowed to tell anybody what you said in confession. But if you're not really a priest, and I tell you in confession, thinking you're a priest, well, I guess you can tell anybody you want. So again, funny how clergy has been very common, and one of the better ways to get kind of close to usually the ruling elite tend to have their religious connection, if you will. So again, more information's coming out about how the CIA has managed to infiltrate a number of places within our own government, not just other governments, which of course we want it to do. So buckle up is what they're suggesting on this particular article. This is actually a cool one, post 4304. Let's do a refresh on this because odds are that's not the right page. Yeah, let's do it this way. Senate confirms Ratcliffe as next director. Let's check
first
this out.
and a second.
Let's try to check this out. There we go.
For the Senate tonight, it's the first committee hearing since fleeing Washington over the coronavirus, and it's the second time around in the consideration for the president's pick to be his intelligence chief. Congressional correspondent Chad Pergram is on Capitol Hill tonight.
I'd like to call this hearing to order. This hearing will be a little bit different.
A hearing called to order for the first time in 2 months. DNI nominee John Ratcliffe sat 40 feet from senators in a cavernous hearing room, a bottle of Purell at his side. Senators usually squeeze onto the dais for a hearing, but Intelligence Committee Chairman Richard Burr limited how many senators could sit in the hearing room at once. Senators had to stay in their offices until it was their turn to ask Ratcliffe questions. This is a do-over for Ratcliffe to be the nation's top spy. President Trump tapped the congressman to succeed resigning DNI Dan Coats last summer, but Ratcliffe pulled out after bipartisan questions arose about his qualifications.
And you start out day one down 47-0 because every Democrat is against you. My concern was there's not a lot of margin for error there. And
President Trump tweeted that he told Ratcliffe, quote, how miserable it would be for him and his family to deal with these people. The president never nominated somebody else. In the fall, Ratcliffe emerged as one of Mr. Trump's most ardent defenders during impeachment hearings. President Trump gave Ratcliffe a mulligan. Democrats wondered what changed.
He is a deeply partisan cheerleader for the president, a yes man in every sense of the phrase, someone who doesn't speak truth to power to the president of the United States.
Ratcliffe assured senators he wouldn't tilt intelligence to align with the president. He pledged independence, even as Mr. Trump has suggested the intelligence community tried to undermine him.
Whether you're talking about the president, whether you're talking about Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, anyone's views on what they want the intelligence to be will never impact the intelligence that I deliver. Never.
Ratcliffe testified that he didn't think that the intelligence community had run amok. He also sidestepped a question about intelligence agencies and the deep state. His confirmation vote should come before the full Senate later this month. Brett?
I love how it's so hard for the Democrats to think that that President Trump would actually want people in the cabinet that aren't trying to conspire to take him down, like that are actually there to help do the job. It just blows my mind that Schumer's like, he's a yes man. It's somebody that's just going to say what Trump wants to. It's like, well, better than somebody who's constantly trying to stab him in the back. Aren't we trying to work together here? I thought trying to get out of this pandemic, trying to make our country better, right? Just, I don't know, crazy things. I know you guys are so hung up on the fact that Hillary didn't win because she sucks. But whatever. 4305, another great post. But at Team Cavuto said it will kill you. Why are select journalists so invested with instilling fear regarding HCQ? 40 years on the market, man. It was longer, 40 years on the market, 65 years that the military has been using it. There was a post recently on the news, I want to say 42,000 pills a day that the military is giving people daily this HCQ. So very widely used. So is this about the healing and the well-being of the people or something else in large caps, right? Or screaming? Is this about the virus or something else? And it has to be the something else, I think, is becoming apparent, hopefully to most everybody. The something else is the part that a lot of us need to be going, why? What? What is this timing? Why is there this urgency? Why are they trying so hard? Why is there this fear that maybe in 4 more years they can try it again after Trump finishes everything? But there's not. There's a panic like, if this doesn't get fixed in 4 or 5 months, the end of the world is nigh. And it's very interesting how this is all playing out. Let's check out this Twitter post that they share with us here. Another interesting thing that they're sharing, if I remember correctly, I don't want to play this one with the volume. I think it had to do with the pills. The color, that's right, the color of the pill. Let me go big on this. This is funny as hell. The color of the pills. The color of the pills. These are HCQ pills. Now everyone's heard the phrase from Neo, right? Or Morpheus when he says, you want to take the red pill and wake up from your dreams and never da-da-da. So the red pill concept. The HCQ is red. Interesting. So is Sudafed and a lot of other things, but doesn't matter. So is this pill. And oddly, in this case, this red pill seems to kind of wake you up from the misery and craziness of this coronavirus, apparently. Post 4306. How do you convince people a vaccine is necessary? Critical. Vaccines, necessary. Gotta have the vaccine. Gotta have the vaccine. Because vaccines are known forever to help for all these things. Now, an interesting link here that's really, really bad. I did find a way to get it up. But U.S. data on influenza deaths are false and misleading. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, acknowledges a difference between flu death and flu-associated death, yet uses the terms interchangeably. They're pointing this out because it's a parody, if you will. Don't make me spell it out further than I'm going to. Flu death versus flu-associated death. To the CDC, there's no difference between the two of those. Flu death means you died from the flu, but that really doesn't ever happen. And that's what this article from the CDC, actually this is aspe.hhs.gov.cdc, or WAC CDC, right? So the thing is, it's not the flu that typically kills you. Typically it's pneumonia. You get a secondary thing from the flu that actually causes death, but they call it a flu death, though you died from pneumonia. Now, that's an example of where you would probably be, all right, well, that's fine. But technically speaking, that's not really a flu death. Now, that's the thing is when you start looking at some of these sicknesses where there were people that did not have verification that they had the virus. So I'm not 100% sure you have it because I didn't test you, but you thought you had it. You seemed like you had symptoms when you called me over the phone. We're going to go ahead and attribute that to it anyway, even though you had diabetes, even though you had heart problems and you weren't going to the doctor because they were closed. We're going to call it a CDC related or an issue related to the COVID. And that's not necessarily counting it correctly. Dr. Birx was talking about that, and there's numerous articles pointing out that very same fact. So there's some very interesting things that are starting to come out about the way they count these numbers. Now, one thing I just wanted to pull up really quick that I thought was interesting, I don't know, maybe it's not, historical reference of seasonal influenza vaccine doses distributed. Now, I was curious. I'm like, well, these numbers, I would assume at some point, 'cause I don't remember it was that long ago when they started talking about how you should get your flu vaccine. And if you think about it, if it costs anything at all, because it costs somebody something, you may go in and get it for free. Maybe it costs you $5, who knows? But somebody's getting some money for this somehow. So there's thousands and millions of dollars, billions probably, tied into this. But oddly, if you look back, prior to 2008, they didn't even bother to keep track because it was a reasonably small amount of millions of doses. So under 110 million doses a year of flu vaccine. It started gaining a lot of traction because back in 2004, I don't know if I've got that article or if that's this guy. No, I don't have that article open, but I want to say it was back in 2004. Some members of Congress and a bunch of people started talking about how they wanted to make vaccines a bigger deal, get more people taking them. And I think they started realizing there was a lot of money behind this. And I think a lot of senators and congressmen and all sorts of different people got on these bandwagons of these companies that make vaccines. These vaccines then got a huge push with the help of Congress, how you should always get your vaccines. And you can see, starting after 2009 or 2009 to 2010, we had an enormous spike in volume of vaccines, and it's pretty much taken off from there. You can kind of do your own figuring on that, but you've got to kind of wonder what's going on. Seems to tie in interesting. Certainly 2009, I think that was the big collapse. A lot of interesting things happening then. I think we also had some sort of a bunch of different flu, right? The H1N1, we had we had all of SARS, we had all these different crazy kinds of flus floating around every other year, it seemed like, back then. So interesting timing, the way things work. Post 4307, welcome to the D Party, and that's pretty much how this game's played, right? So Democrats paid Pennsylvania election officials to stuff ballot box. A lot of you probably aren't surprised. I wasn't. I certainly wasn't. It was like, well, geez, there's a big shock. Former judge of elections, I don't even know what the hell that is, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, of course, just in case you didn't know where Philly was, has been charged and pleaded guilty to illegally adding voters for Democrat candidates in judicial races 2014, 2015, and 2016. Democrat candidates in judicial races. This guy's adding votes. One of the reasons why Trump keeps saying vote by mail. I don't trust the dudes that are going to grab the ballots and take the big giant box, the big ballot box, and carry it and not do something with it and not alter it. What are the odds? You can't. First off, you think about power and corruption the way it works. How many of us seriously would handle someone stuffing gobs of money into our pocket? You know, a lot of us are very critical of others, and rightly so. They're our government people. We should be able to trust them. But how many of us would have a hard time doing it ourselves, right? Post 4308. Worth remembering. I love when he just gives us these little one-liners practically, right? But this is a very interesting post as well. 29 minutes, again, morning with Mika, our wonderful friend here. And it really bothers me, by the way, how much this dude looks like Chandler Bing from Friends. It just bothers me because I liked that show. And now Joe Scarborough has ruined it for me. Thank you, Joe, you jerk. As if there is any doubt, is our job to control what people think. It's our job. Mika informs us. 29 minutes of your life, you won't want to get it back. Mika tells us what's the purpose of the press.
Well, and I think that the dangerous, edges here are that he's trying to undermine the media, trying to make up his own facts. And it could be that while unemployment and the economy worsens, he could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think. And that is our job.
Yeah, if you look at
that is our job.
Yeah, if you look at the...
That is our job. Not President Trump. He's not supposed to tell people what to think. No. That's our job in the propaganda media and MSNBC. Mika and Scarborough with really big hair. Really big hair. Again, CIA. They are infiltrating aspects of everything. Probably YouTube too. What the hell? We'll see. Right? We'll see how it all plays out. Long story short, these things are being uncovered. Things are starting to happen. Things are popping up in the news. Attention's being brought to it. People are taking their red pill and waking up from what has been happening around them for years. I want, again, to reiterate the importance of remembering even people on the other side are Americans, our family, our people here with us. There's no need to make enemies. This is a time to unite. This is a time to listen to what someone's saying. Certainly you don't have to give up your freedoms or anything and say, look, I don't agree with you, and you can say that. But fact of the matter is, this is not a time to hate. This is not a time to throw sticks or stones. This is the time to throw love. This is the time to throw olive branches towards people. Because that's the only way we're going to get this back, is united. United. Where we go one, we go all. That doesn't mean where most of us go all. No, that's all of us. Even the ones right now that are a little grumpy, that are a little annoying, that we kind of wish would talk less. Even them. Remember the little guys. If you like what you're seeing here, please click the thumbs up, share the video if you'd like. It helps get past a lot of the algorithms. Also, subscribe if you haven't done so. Bell icon if you want to be notified. Appreciate each and every one of you. Love you all too as well. Where we go one, we go all. It's on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.